Jupiter turns retrograde in the zodiac sign of Taurus. Next on Horoscope Highlights.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Astrology Hub's Academy. Wherever you are on your astrology journey, we have a class that will help you get to the next level.
Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom, and I'm your weekly horoscope columnist here on Astrology Hub. And this week, I wanted to talk to you about Jupiter turning retrograde in the zodiac sign of Taurus. But before we begin, did you know that you could read about transits to your own sign and subscribe to my weekly newsletter? Go to astrologyhub.com/horoscope. Again, that's astrologyhub.com/horoscope to subscribe for your weekly newsletter. Now, let's go ahead and talk about that Jupiter turning retrograde in the zodiac sign of Taurus. Jupiter, as we all know, is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose. It's a planet that we all look forward to transiting through our own zodiac sign. So, when Jupiter transits through your own zodiac sign, which lasts for about a year, you can pretty much expect good things to happen to you. But Jupiter is a little bit more than, a rabbit's foot in astrology. By bringing good things into your life, Jupiter does two things. It affirms that you have a place in this world, and it shows you that good things can happen in this world. And by good things happening in this world, it elevates your eyes. It gets your eyes to look upwards, to see it in the sky, and to associate or connect, to reconnect to the higher purpose that is going through your life. So good things happening to you isn't like, giving your Labrador retriever a treat after it's done something good. In a way it is. The Labrador retriever has fetched and brought something back to you where it sat down and stayed put, and you give it a treat and it eats it hungrily and it looks at you again. So there is a sort of reward system that's associated to Jupiter. But the added quality of Jupiter is that it gets you to look past the reward, and it gets you to ask, why am I being rewarded? And in the case of the Labrador retriever, it's being rewarded for sitting or staying or rolling over or performing some sort of ingenious canine trick. But for us human beings, it goes a little bit further than that. We are rewarded for doing good works. We're rewarded for being there for other people. We're rewarded for making the world a better place. Jupiter's simple lesson is the more good that you do, the more good that you beget. All right. And it works on this principle of paying it forward, that if a good deed has been done for you, you go ahead and do a good deed for someone else. Not necessarily in a reciprocal way, like, oh, you scratched my back and now I'm going to go and scratch yours. No, it's more like, there was this person who showed up in my life at a time when I really needed that person to show up. Maybe it was someone who sat down with you when you were going through a problem, someone who provided guidance when you were going through a dark time, or protection or sheltering when you needed it. Okay, this is almost like an agent of Jupiter, an agent of good fortune who comes into your life and shows you something that's good, something that's wonderful, something that it gives you the protection so that you can be who you are as a person. So again, as I said, it's not about going back and, doing that to the person back, but the idea is for you to turn to someone else in your life, someone else who's down on their luck, someone else who's going through a rough time, someone else who could use a break or a step up or a helping hand. And you go ahead and you provide that for that person. Why? Because it's a good thing to do. Why? Because it's humanitarian. Why? Because it makes the world a better place.
My guess is if I were to look at a vision board that you've made, I'd see pictures of vibrant, healthy-looking people and some indication of wealth. No, I'm not talking about the cliched red Corvette or private jet, but probably something a little more custom tailored for you. Maybe a smiling woman playing with her children in a backyard garden. Someone happily nestled in the nook of their custom-designed library with all their favorite books on the shelves. Or maybe you'd show a strong, flexible person doing yoga on a gorgeous beach. You see, we're all here having this human experience, and we'd love for it to be as fulfilling as possible. But if the path was clear and living it was easy, we'd all be doing it. Here's the good news. There are keys in your astrology chart to discovering your vision of health, wealth, and fulfillment. And beginning in September, we have 3 master astrologers who are going to show you how to find it. You can learn more and enroll now at the promotional pricing in the link in the show notes or at astrologyhub.com/workshop. So here's to living your vision of health, wealth, and fulfillment. I really hope to see you there.
So Jupiter takes 12 years to go through all 12 zodiac signs to come back to your sign. So Jupiter, as I said before, is in your sign for 1 year, and it will return to your sign 12 years later. So you can always sort of read these Jupiter cycles of good begetting good or good turns being done every 12 years of your life. So the age of 12 becomes a very strong Jupiter year, the age of 24, the age of 36, so on and so forth. And as you grow in your maturity, you look past the doggy treat that's being given to you with the pat on the head for having done something good. And you look, your horizons broaden. You look in the world, to the world, into the world, at the world. And you look and appreciate your place in the world and how much you are part of a greater community. And Jupiter is the planet of community, and how much that community is a part of you. Now, Jupiter, as I said, is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose. And subsequently, Jupiter rules over things like government, which is very much concerned with the welfare of its people. Jupiter also rules over religious institutions like churches and synagogues and temples. Places where people gather together to practice their faith, to attest to the presence of God, whatever you may call God in your life, but they do it together communally as a group. These are all expressions of Jupiter. So what happens when Jupiter turns retrograde in the sky? Now, retrograde, as we talked about before, refers to an apparent backwards motion of a planet. If you look up in the sky and you see the planets in the sky, and if you have a lot of time on your hands like they did back in Babylon when they were sitting on perched atop ziggurats, they could look at the sky and they could see a planet gradually and slowly moving forward in that sky. I mean, the fastest moving planet was the moon, and it changed its appearance dramatically. So that was an easy one to track. But then they applied the same principle that they applied to observing the moon, to observing the planets. Although they didn't really change their appearance dramatically like the moon, they did move through the heavens. But there would be certain times of year, like for instance, around the time when the planet was opposite the sun, there would be certain times of year where the planet would stop in the sky and actually appear to be moving backwards in the sky. And that was called a retrograde. Now, thank heavens, planets don't really move backwards in the sky, because if they do, we'd all be in a lot of trouble. But it was during this period of time when the planet was moving backwards in the sky that the idea of a retrograde, going backwards, introduced itself as a notion. In astrology nowadays, it's pretty much understood as the planet doing an about face. You're enjoying forward movement into your life, and now it's moving backwards. So you're going backwards in your life. Instead of the car moving forward, you put it in reverse, and it is now moving backwards. So that's one idea. Another idea is that the planet can operate in the opposite way that it behaves when it's moving forward in the sky. So if Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose, then perhaps it becomes the planet of bad luck and lower purpose. And it's moving backwards. That might be an idea. Finally, another notion that you can have with the planet moving retrograde is a regression. You thought that you had left a situation, you were free of a relationship, you swore you would never return to a thankless job, or you're leaving your country for good to go and make your future in another place, and then you're called back. Okay, so retrogrades can also be associated to a regression, a sort of being called back. So Jupiter, the planet of good fortune and higher purpose, is turning retrograde in the zodiac sign of Taurus. So what's that about? Well, let's think about how Jupiter, as I said, is the planet of good fortune, higher purpose. It gives, and it's about begetting good, okay, bringing good. Jupiter is a very moral planet, probably of all the planets in astrology. I would imagine Jupiter is the most moral. It's the most concerned with what's good and what's bad. And sometimes people, in focusing on what's good, love to relish and ostracize what's bad. And that could be one of the pitfalls of Jupiter in an astrological chart. But when Jupiter turns retrograde, it stops bringing the good fortune, okay? And it stops being an available or an accessible higher purpose. It's almost like the call got dropped between you and whatever you regard as a god or goddess or a spiritual being in your life. All of a sudden, the signal's gone, and it's like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, this is what happens during a Jupiter retrograde. That feeling of moving forward into your life at a clipped pace, of one good thing happening after another, one good thing rewarding your efforts, so you tried something, you got a reward, the pat on the head, you're going to come back and try again and again and again, you get more rewards, you're a Labrador dog, okay? All of these things are happening. Jupiter is moving forward. And this is something that people born under Taurus and perhaps the earth signs, Virgo and Capricorn, have been experiencing this year, along with people born under the water signs of Cancer and Pisces. Jupiter is going to go in reverse. So does that mean it's going to take back all the good things it gave you? Does it mean that it's going to be like, I'm going to take back that raise and that wonderful person that you got connected to, and that country that you thought you were going to make a new future in? I'm going to take back that passport. I'm going to take it back. No, Jupiter isn't going to do this at all. It's not Saturn. But anyway, what Jupiter is going to do is that it's going to pull the plug on that forward motion. And that's where it gets interesting. Jupiter is a lot like Saturn in astrology. In fact, it can be said that Jupiter and Saturn are flip sides of the same coin because they represent the flip sides of fortune. As we've been talking about, Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and higher purpose. With good fortune comes purpose and meaning. Okay. When you stop experiencing good fortune, how do you react? Do you say, woe is me? Do you feel abandoned by your God or your deity or your higher purpose? Are you at a loss? Do you lose a sense of direction and a purpose? Is everything suddenly rendered meaningless? Yes, those things can happen, and it can be worse. You can actually feel that fortune is against you. If you're living in a war zone these days, you feel very much that fortune is against you. And it's very hard to have faith and a higher purpose when things are being bombed and people are being killed. It's very hard to plaster over the cracks in the wall and say that this is serving a higher purpose. There is a more profound meaning to what's going on. It's very hard. It's very challenging to do that when you're experiencing a downward turn in your fortune. And this begins to describe the relationship between Jupiter and Saturn. On one side of the coin, you have faith. Okay, you have belief. Faith, belief that things are going to turn out in the end, or that there is a higher power that's guiding your actions or protecting your wants and wishes, much like the planet Jupiter itself protects the Earth in our own solar system. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. And because of that, Jupiter draws into its orbit all the asteroids and meteors and space debris that would have wiped us out long ago, like perhaps it did the dinosaurs, had Jupiter not been there. So Jupiter in our solar system is a guardian. It is a patron. It is a protector. Just like Jupiter in your astrological chart also serves the same function. It protects, it benefits, it guards. So Jupiter retrograde, it's taken that back. So faith, which is what Jupiter calls upon, faith in a higher power, faith in a higher being. Okay. We now get the flip side, kind of the Saturn side, if you will, which is doubt. Saturn is all doubt. And if you know any of the Saturn-ruled signs, like Capricorn and Aquarius, they doubt. Okay? They're the ones who say, I'm not sold on it. I don't think so. They look underneath the platitudes and say, your feet of clay are showing. Okay, so there's a sort of sardonic, almost sarcastic quality to the Saturn-ruled signs of Capricorn and Aquarius. They're not buying it. They're not so easily fooled. Why? Because they have no problem looking at misfortune. Okay, they have no problem looking at the ills and the bad things that are done in society. And as a result, tend to have more compassion and more sympathy for that when it happens. They're not the ones. The Saturn types are not the ones who are going to say, well, you must have done something wrong to have brought this on yourself. You must not have believed in your god or your goddess or your deity enough for this to have happened. There's something that you must have done wrong. There's some way that you must have been selfish or sinful. Look at the book of Job. That's what that is all about. So we can't always live in a Saturnine world, though. You know, if we did nothing but dwell on the things that could go wrong, or the futility of life, or that we will all die one day. And if you're thinking of Hamlet holding the skull and saying, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, that is almost the archetype of Saturn in an astrological chart. Saturn is the planet of fear, and Saturn can be the planet of depression and hopelessness, because it knows that we are all going to perish one day. But how much living would we do if that preoccupied our lives? How much living would we do if that absorbed every moment of our day? Not much. Okay. So Saturn needs Jupiter like Jupiter needs Saturn. If you're all Jupiter, optimistic, faith, belief in a higher power, things will be revealed, things happen for a reason, then you're denying life here on Earth. Okay, you're saying you're denying reality. You're on a disconnect. And as we have often seen with people who have professed to find the way, to say that they know what's good, who, practice the gospel of prosperity. What we have seen with these people who are supposed to be so giving and generous and sympathetic and forgiving is that they're the opposite. They are the first to point the finger, to say, what did you do wrong? You do not belong. You must be a sinful person. You must not have God or the goddess or the deities or whatever in your heart enough, you know. And what's happened is that fear of looking outside the belief system, that's the thing that they're afraid of. They have to practice the faith in such a dogmatic fashion to sort of shout out anything that could resemble a doubt, a fear, or an anxiety. So when Jupiter turns retrograde, and when Jupiter pulls the plug on your higher purpose and on your good fortune, how are you going to react to it? You know, are you going to say, oh, woe is me? Are you going to give up? That's no problem. People say, woe is me, and I'm going to give up all the time. And they're hardly punished for it. You know, you should see me when I can't find my keys. Okay, it's like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? You know, or when something goes wrong with the computer and I'm on the call bank, please someone talk to me and help me with my technical problem. Okay, I mean, it doesn't take much to throw all of us into wells of hopelessness and despair, but that's not what I'm really talking about. Good fortune does lead the way to higher purpose, but it has to be more than a reward for something good that's done. Good fortune leading its way to higher purpose gets you to experience the higher purpose in your life in a new and a different way. But that's not going to happen if good fortune is dished out to you by rote. That's not going to happen if good fortune is a reward for having done things right. That's not much of a test, is it? Jupiter, like Saturn, is a planet of tests. Saturn does it by putting obstacles in your way or weighing you down with enormous burdens. Jupiter's more subtle. It revokes the good. It revokes the good. Why? To see if you are indeed good. And this is something that we experience during a Jupiter retrograde. If we throw up our hands and say, okay, easy come, easy go, or I guess it wasn't meant to be, then that's fine. That's all it was a reward for something that you did. But let's say you get a break and it doesn't work out. And you say, you know what? I still liked what I was doing. You know what? I still liked the path that I was on. You know what? I felt more connected to my sense of purpose than I have ever felt in my entire life. That's the thing that takes you off the hamster exercise wheel, the path that's often trod to the point of, becoming, I don't know, a highway. That's the thing that takes you off that path and takes you on a different path, what's often referred to, because it is, a spiritual path. Spiritual paths take us into forests, overseas, across continents, to the tops of mountains, and to the backs of caves. They take us to groves and forests, and ponds and lakes. They take us to houses of worship or ruins. This is where these spiritual paths take us. They take us out into the world so that we can experience a world that's different than what we expected it to be, so that we can experience a world that's different from what it was supposed to be, that we were taught it should be. And this is done through a kind of defiance at the loss of good fortune. Things didn't work out, but I wanted them to work out. I still want them to work out. So I'm going to do what I can to make them work out. And that galvanizes a faith. That galvanizes a conviction. That takes you to the precipice where you are not sure at all if things are going to work out. There's no charted course. There's no predictable way. There's no promise. Okay. There's no promise. There's no parent on the other side ready to catch you. Okay. So you go to the precipice, and this is something that you will experience when you feel the air go out of the tires, when you feel the wind retreat from your sails, when you feel adrift and like things aren't working out, or you don't have the same belief or the same faith or the same momentum that you had before, when things take a turn away from what was supposed to be secure or guaranteed. Because when we're dealing with Jupiter in Taurus, we are dealing with things being secure and guaranteed. Okay, Taurus is a very industrious sign. Taurus is a plot of land that you plant your seeds in and you expect to see the crops grow. And more often than not, that's exactly what they do. But we know about things like droughts or things about sudden rains, things that can take away the crop. Do you throw up your hands and give up being a farmer? Or do you find a more ingenious way of farming? This is what can happen during a Jupiter retrograde. So things might take an opposite turn in regards to your finances. Things might take an opposite turn in regards to your work. Why am I talking about finances and work? Taurus is an earth sign. Earth is the element of health and wealth. It's the easiest way to remember earth, health and wealth. Things might even take a downward turn in terms of your health. Okay. So are you going to throw up your hands and say, this is my lot? Are you going to throw up your hands and blame yourself for not having been a good enough person or a believing person? Are you going to countenance people in your life saying, you must not have believed in it enough, or you must have done something wrong to bring this down on you. You must have done a bad strategy or made a poor choice, and maybe that will teach you next time. Everyone's so quick to point fingers and offer that kind of cold comfort when they're not the one being targeted by misfortune. But let's say you still want what Jupiter showed you when it entered Taurus. Let's say you still want that good health. You still want that financial security. You still want that prosperity. You still want that job. You still want that physical experience of being alive in the world, that you still want those things. What are you going to do to get them? This goes beyond ambition or drive. This goes beyond calculus or strategy. What it talks about is a leap. What it talks about is a leap of faith. A leap of faith is rushing to the precipice, seeing the yawning gulf down in front of you, hearing everyone say, go back the way you came, go back to what you know is familiar, go back to what you know is solid, is a guarantee, is good, go back to all of those things. But when you take that leap, when you say, no, this is what I want, and I'm putting my trust in the universe, in God and Goddess, and in whatever I resonate with, this is what I want, and I put my trust in it, and you take that leap. You take that leap into the invisible hands of providence. You go and you say, this is what it's all about. And the hope is that it will deliver. The hope is that you will be guided. But when you take that leap into the invisible hands of providence, what it does is that it changes your relationship to providence. There's no guarantee you're going to get the treat. There's no guarantee that you're going to get the pat on the head. There's no guarantee that it's going to work out the way that you expect or even want it to. And in that process itself, you embrace the doubt, you embrace the fear, you embrace perhaps even the sacrifice. But what you also embrace is this deep knowledge, this deep conviction that what you're doing is right. So that when you land, and you will land on the other side of that leap, when you land, it won't be a feeling of relief, but it will be a feeling of profundity. It will have changed the way that you look at this. I want you to ask yourself in this time that Jupiter is retrograde, what am I taking the leap for? What is the leap I'm taking? And what am I taking the leap for? Because during this time, you're being invited to take that leap of faith. And you will see where you land after that leap of faith when Jupiter comes out of retrograde on January 30th. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Horoscope Highlights. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Your support means a lot. See you next week.